Hello guys, thanks for watching. Elise makes a bunch of videos. Today I wanted to do a video about scuba diving panic. If you go on into certification in scuba diving in the dive master level or rescue diver, really, they teach you how to deal with other people panicking, which is fairly common in especially beginner divers. And I just wanted to talk a bit about what you can do for your own panic, because I think the stuff that Patty teaches generally is for real emergencies, which could also apply. I might do a separate video about that one. But this one is sort of more about preventing and dealing with panic for yourself, because as you learn about scuba diving, you will find out that your number one responsibility is for your own safety. And dealing with panic is something that you may have to deal with if you want to learn and participate in scuba diving. So the first thing is just preventing panic, or at least minimizing the risk of having panic, which means being fully prepared, checking everything before you get into the water, all your equipment, air, do your belt fins, make sure you have everything in order before you even touch the water. That is super important at every level of scuba diving, even for beginners. Second thing is just communication with your other divers. You should generally not scuba dive alone, but if you are alone, then you should at least let people know ahead what you're doing, where you're going, when you're expected back, and that kind of thing. So being prepared is a big part of that. And leading up to actually entering the water, one thing that I've found really helpful is to focus on regulating my breathing. I think a lot of panic happens when people are hurrying to get in and getting their blood going really fast, and then using a lot of oxygen, and then once they enter the water, having this feeling like they can't catch their breath. And the reason for that is that you've exerted a bunch of energy putting on your equipment, walking around, blah, 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 running around and all this. And when you start breathing quickly, you don't get as much oxygen in, and then you feel like you're not getting enough air, even though you have the air. The oxygen isn't entering, and then that just builds and builds because you're panicking now, and then that makes you breathe even faster, and you start getting into this spiral of panic, usually caused by you thinking that you don't have air, when in fact you generally do. So the textbook explanation is that the slower that you breathe in and out, particularly inhaling, the more oxygen you are actually getting into your lungs and then into your bloodstream, and that will calm everything down. So regulating your breathing is the number one way to relieve panic or prevent panic. So when I'm getting into the water, as soon as I start putting on my, pulling up the end of my wetsuit, putting on my BCD, getting everything in place, fins and all that. While I'm doing that, I'm also counting my breath in and out. Usually start with a 4 count, so inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and try to get to an 8 count. 8 to 12 count is sort of your professional level of air breathing, but if you can get to 8 sort of calm counts for each inhale and exhale, somewhere around 6 to 8 if you're new to breathing techniques and stuff like that, that's a good place to start. It also just keeps your mind focused on breathing slowly, which is really the main source of, I think, a lot of panic that has to do with people thinking they're not getting air, which is usually the main source of panic, I think. So that's one thing. As soon as you start putting your equipment on, just start counting, get into the habit of doing it, and then you can sort of do it and also do other things at the same time, because if you are going to be a good scuba diver, you're really going to have to know how to multitask. There's always a lot of things happening. You're looking at things, you're checking things, you're checking on your buddy, you're checking your depth and time and air and all these things, but you also have to be focusing on your breathing and your buoyancy and all this sort of stuff. So just doing that before you even enter the water, getting your mind into the mindset of multitasking, focusing on your breathing, is a really good way to just sort of prevent that initial panic from happening as soon as you go under and you've got the regulator in your mouth and your brain starts to go, oh, you're not getting air, you're not getting air, you need to go up, you need to go up. But like, that is just a false fear situation that your monkey brain is trying to save you because you are a little bit anxious, maybe because maybe you haven't been scuba diving in a while or you're a beginner. So yeah, I think that's the number one thing, is just controlling your breathing and breathing slowly. Another thing is just to be aware of everything that's going on, particularly all your own equipment, checking your gauge constantly, knowing where everything is, having it all exactly sort of where you know it's going to be. I usually like tuck my gauge sort of into my front so I can just look down and it's right there. If you have it sort of floating around, then you start sort of like looking for it, and then that causes all sorts of anxieties possibly. So yeah, just having everything all in and close and exactly where you know where it is, having your emergency air in a certain spot, all of that. And just being aware of all of those things about your equipment. And then the second most important thing is knowing where your buddy is, keeping communication with them, keeping in a good close distance with them, keeping sure that you know that they're all right, you know, like, are you okay? Do you have, like, how much air do you have? And that kind of thing. Just sort of keeping that check every once in a while. And so yeah, that's like the main thing. And then further into it, once you are at a depth, if you have a panic, you know, below a certain depth, you know, like 10 feet or whatever, I think a lot of people's first instinct is just to surface immediately, which is not a good idea. If you read all the literature, which I'm sure you will, if you are taking a PADI course or if you've already taken one, good thing to refresh on is that once you are under like sort of 4 meters, you can't just shoot right up to the surface unless it's like absolute emergency, just because of the nitrogen levels. So yeah, if you have gone to depth and you start to panic and your brain starts to tell you that you need to go to the surface, you need to sort of fight that and really find like a logic inside yourself. And I think this one technique is for people who suffer from panic attacks. And the thing that you do is you look around and you tell yourself what it is that you see. So like, oh, I see my buddy is there. I can see, I don't know, rock. I can see my gauge. I can see the fish over there. Like, just start naming the things that you can see within your visual, and then that calms your brain down because you can see that like everything's there. It's all in order. It's all good. Sometimes you might just be getting like narcosis. And that just makes your brain a little bit wonky. It's sort of like you're a little bit like vaguely intoxicated from just the different levels of chemicals in your bloodstream, and so then that makes you feel a bit weird sometimes, and then that can cause you to get confused and then start to panic. So just be aware that that's happening, and maybe just think, maybe I need to like go up a little bit, not to the surface, but just like a couple meters, and then that will get your blood back into a sort of more logical state. And always obviously communicating with your buddy, just let them know I'm going up a little bit, and then they'll see that, you know, maybe there's something wrong with my brain, need to go up just to a little different level, and then they'll be like, okay, and hopefully go up with you. That's the ideal situation. Yeah, always stick together with your buddy, and yeah, just sort of mentally be prepared for what it is you're doing as well. Just like going over the site that you're going to, what it is that you're going to see, what time you're going to stay at depth. That's a really important one to know before you go down, even though I know a lot of the computers these days sort of tell you when you need to surface and all that stuff. But just for your own brain, it's a really good idea just to like go over these plans with the people that you're diving with, and that way you can prevent some panic. And if you are starting to feel panic, you can sort of think back and remember, okay, this is the plan, this is what we're doing. And if all else fails, you can go to the surface, but just remember to do your 3-minute safety stop, especially if you're at depth. And a lot of the times you don't need to go all the way up. You can just go up a few meters, and like I said, the chemicals in your blood will regulate a little bit, and then you can sort of like take stock. Another thing is if you're in a big current or you're going really quickly, and again, it's usually just about not getting enough air, and that causes panic, just because you're exerting yourself. Just say like slow down. If you can get to like a wall or reef or some sort of something fixed, and just hold on and just give yourself that minute to catch your breath. Do the count. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just give yourself like 10, 20, 30 seconds, and just get yourself like going again, you know, just let people know you're not okay, you're not getting air or whatever's happening. Yeah, so that's sort of my suggestion on how to deal with panic within yourself, because I think that's something that a lot of PADI courses don't really cover very well. It's usually about how to deal with other people panicking, and I feel like they don't really want to bring it up for you to decide what you're going to do for yourself, because then they think maybe that they're just like inserting ideas into your brain. But I've seen it happen so many times, and I feel like people aren't prepared for possible panic, even just a little bit. And yeah, I think the number one thing is prevention, like planning, knowing what you're doing, knowing where everything is, what the thing is that you're going to, and all the details of your equipment and the plan. And the second thing, which is probably the most important thing, is just regulating your breathing. That is usually the absolute answer to preventing your own panic as well as other people's. And if you have taken the rescue diving course, you'll know how to deal with other people who are panicking. But that's a whole other matter. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I have a couple more on scuba diving and one on anxiety and how it may actually be helpful. So I'll put that in the description of this video if you're interested. That was from like a couple years ago. But yeah, thanks for watching, and hope you have yourself a great day. Peace.